funny.
Donald Trump sneezed. Mary Trump joins us now. Sorry, I stepped on your intro, Simone.
Please.
Mary, I want to read a little bit from the book. You write, quote, "The trouble with Donald had started long before he entered school. At home, he tormented his little brother, Robert, a year and a half younger, and seemed to have nothing but disdain for everybody else, including and perhaps especially his mother. The kids in the neighborhood alternately despised and feared him." Sounds familiar. "He had a reputation for being a thin-skinned bully who beat up on younger kids but ran home in a fit of rage as soon as somebody stood up to him." What happens, Mary, if in this election the American people are the ones who stand up to him?
Well, I think we saw a pretty good look at that at the debate last week when Vice President Harris stood up to the thin-skinned bully and, metaphorically speaking, of course, punched him right in the face. She inflicted upon him a narcissistic injury so deep he will never recover from it. And I'm actually not being hyperbolic. That is true. Donald will revisit those moments for the rest of the campaign and probably for the rest of his life. So I think Vice President Harris has given all of us permission to do the same. And we need to stand up to the tyranny and the cruelty and the fascism and put a stop to it as only we can.
So, Mary, the thing that has struck me about Donald Trump from the very beginning, I first met him and dealt with him in 2013, and it is that as a person of politics, he has no political core. And so I always found it very interesting that the man who had no political core and no orientation towards republicanism would look at someone like me and someone like Liz Cheney and call us rhinos. But in the context of that, I want to play for you Donald Trump reacting to Republicans for Harris efforts and where that whole conversation goes. Let's take a listen.
A lot of them are rhinos, I will say that. But we have a lot of people that are Democrats that are voting for me because they can't stand the open borders anymore. They can't stand the stupid financial. As an example, I terminated the Russian pipeline, the biggest pipeline in the world. It's called Nord Stream 2. Nobody ever heard of Nord Stream 2. Nord Stream 2. And he comes in, he lets them build that, and he terminates Keystone XL pipeline, which was so important for us as a country. But I guess, I don't know, the union got to him, somebody got to him.
So just so everybody understands, the question that he just answered was, what's your reaction to people who are Republicans who say they're going to vote for Kamala Harris? And his response ended up on the XL pipeline and some other crazy. What the hell is his problem? What's going on in his? Can he keep a consistent train of thought? Just answer. Help me understand. I mean, because in helping me understand, hopefully other people understand too, why they are following someone who just isn't mentally capable of putting together a complete thought around a simple question about what's your reaction to X.
There's so much going on there. First, just for a second to allude to something you said earlier, Donald does have no ideology. He has no core self at all, actually. And one of the things that makes him dangerous is that every relationship he has, whether it's with other politicians or with his children, is transactional. So he will do whatever people want him to do if he owes them something, if they help him get back into power. In terms of what we're seeing happen with his inability to hold a thought, this is somebody who has severe untreated psychiatric disorders going back decades. So he is unraveling. This is what happens when you don't treat illnesses. They worsen. And I think it's much worse than translating him. As you said, he doesn't make any sense. So what people are doing, a lot of people in the media are doing, is they're imbuing meaning into his statements that does not exist. That's not translating. That is giving him a huge advantage, and essentially just making up out of whole cloth whatever they want him to mean. And it's very dangerous. So I think just letting people listen to what he's saying without telling them what they should be hearing is very important. And I've said this before, and I think it would be an interesting experiment. When Donald was at the height of his legal problems, we had legal experts, as we should, helping us explain what was going on. We should do the same with experts in human psychology. We should have psychologists, psychiatrists, neuropsychologists helping us understand what is going on with this deeply broken man.
Mary's point about not giving added context to what he's saying so that people absorb it differently, I think is really important. When I was a spokesperson, people used to write up my quotes just how I said them, as they should. So if I did not use, the best words, if I wasn't as clear as I should be, they did not put context around what I had to say. They would just print it. And I'm just so struck by the way in which some in the media apparatus have bent over backwards to add context and structure to what Trump has said. And for all the talk about the media bias for Democrats, there is a strong, insatiable need to explain Trump and add structure to what he is saying from some in the apparatus.
Yeah, and I think some of that is bias, quite honestly, but it's also a very human impulse to fill in the blanks. We want to be able to understand. And I think it is just as he's worsened, that impulse has grown. And I think it's so important to have conversations like this because it alerts people to what's actually going on. And we've seen this very recently. We saw it at the debate for sure. He cannot hang on to any coherence in his thinking, in his speaking, and he always comes back to the most basic primal cruelty. And we see this with what he and his vice presidential running mate are doing vis-a-vis the tragedy now in Springfield, Ohio. They're going to the lowest common denominator. They're endangering people's lives because it's all they've got, honestly. It's a way to distract. It's a way to distract from their very serious deficits. And it's a way to keep people angry and afraid. And I think we need to be very clear about what's happening. This is stochastic terrorism, and somebody's going to get killed. And if that happens, that is the responsibility of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance.